Hello, everyone. Oh my god, we just started. We just got here.
We simply cannot start with gun hammers already. This is much too soon for this. This is much too soon for this.
I have feelings.
I have thoughts as
Very
well.
strong feelings.
How are we doing, everybody out there? It is so good to see all of you. We are here tonight to discuss, well, horror. How to be creepy.
That is entirely true. We're
An
gonna
echo,
talk a
you
little
say?
bit
Let me fix that.
about
Hold on a second.
horror and TTRPGs, tension, emotional and psychological investment. It goes a little bit beyond the whole I want to be the hero of the story and slay the mighty beast and, be everyone's favorite. Because the storytelling we've been doing, and we've done a lot of it over the last 6 months, I'm sure. Many people in chat have similar experiences. Eventually, you get to a point where that's not enough anymore, or you get to a point where you want to combine these two things, and that's pretty much what we want to chat about. Figure out where everyone's at when it comes to horror, when it comes to the darker side of TTRPGs. And yeah, that's why we're here today. That's why you guys are here. Hopefully, you're not just here to win a free Cult Divinity Lost PDF copy, although if you are, we understand it's a bloody great game. So it's fine. We forgive you.
Understand, Lydia's, we're getting a bit of an echo. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm trying to isolate that problem, but I'm actually kind of enjoying the creepy ambiance it's giving the entire thing. I will attempt to work that out. I'm not quite sure what is causing my echo, but I will try to troubleshoot that. In the meanwhile, we are joined tonight by a special guest who I'm going to be bringing on just, oh my word. Oh. This is what you get when you invite this guy. So.
Apparently, you're the only one echoing, so there might be something feeding into your.
Just you echoing.
area.
Yeah, interesting.
It might be Colin's ethereal form shining through. We all knew it. We all suspected it.
Weird. And then Pope gets echo from both. There is no consistency on this. How very strange. Huh. I don't know what is causing that.
Oh yeah, apparently we're both echoing. For once, it's not the voice mod. I promise. I know we're both fucking around with that a lot, but it's not that.
Well, shit. I'm not sure what the problem is with that. I'm not sure why my capture is doing that. Well, regardless. I mean, even if technical difficulties force me to end this early, I'm simply not letting that happen without two things happening. One, without all of you really kind people being here, being nice enough to show up, at least one of you getting a free copy of Colt that you were promised, and the other being that all of you get to see Mitch. This has to be seen by people. So, time to bring in our guest. All right, Mitch, say hello.
Hey. Hi. Oh, it's so good to be here. Hey, how's it going? I am here in my new office, ready for, I think it's some sort of holiday this weekend. I haven't figured it out yet. People keep coming to my house wanting some small bits of sugary treats, and I'm getting a lot of use out of my basement. So I think it's a win-win for this weekend. So yeah.
Hey, did that fix it, everybody? I
Yeah.
think I actually fixed the problem.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now I'll tell you all later what I did, and it's extremely embarrassing. But for right now, we're going to continue. I wanted to have Mitch here to talk about horror because there's nobody. I mean, look at the fucking guy. There's no one else I'd rather be talking to.
No, don't do that. No.
Yeah, it's
no.
the Okay,
I
so
preferred it when it was the cardboard box. I didn't think I would say that at some point, but I think the cardboard box was.
Yeah, I have been looking for my flesh mask for a couple weeks now, and I am finally happy to have found it.
Okay, well, you're the reason I drink, and as you can see, Mitch lives, breathes horror, and literally can't get out of character for the life of him. So I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to. And what I really wanted, though, like, kind of to start discussing TTRPG horror from a kind of really top-down level. My first question I'd kind of like to ask both of you, and Lydia, you started to touch on this, is why horror? Why do we do this? What do we gain from sitting down to like emotionally torture ourselves for an hour? Which, Lydia, I've played with you. We do that when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but specifically horror. What is to be gained? Why do we do this? So I'd like to start with Lydia and then Mitch.
I'm not entirely sure myself. I keep asking myself that question, considering that I'm considering myself a very reasonable person. I'm not super into horror films. I'm not super into jump scares. I'm a ghost tour guide, but that is a job that I enjoy inflicting it on others, clearly. But I was always wondering, why am I constantly being drawn to this when I can't really put it in words? Why I'm finding myself in these spaces? I think it's possibly because it is a space with little taboos or few taboos, so the freedom to explore is a lot more given. And ideally, what I think we want to do is, of course, even if everything is dark, if everything is horrible, gain something from it. Doesn't mean you have to vanquish evil, doesn't mean you have to overcome the terror, doesn't mean you have to come out the victor of it, but to gain something, even if it's just in the TTRPG scene in particular, even if it is an understanding of the situation, even if you just learn something about yourself, because it is inherently psychological and emotional, because everyone is scared of something else. I think the main draw and the main tickle that comes from it is figuring your own brain and how your own brain works out a little bit better with every session and with every game, and yes, even with every film, with every book you read that is horror themed, because you never quite know how you're going to react to it.
Yeah, you mentioned in there, you don't have to save the day. Essentially, you don't have to defeat the horror at the end, and in fact, you often don't. I mean, that's it's so often when we do these games. Yeah, you don't get your happy ending, and you don't get you lose. And it's interesting it's so different from other TTRPG experiences, that where you're just often with horror, you're not the big damn hero. Very rarely are you the big damn hero, at least, and that's sort of part of the experience. Is being on the losing end is actually sort of part of the experience of it all. But Mitch, same question: why horror? And you are more versed in horror gaming than I am, and it probably ever will be. And in that sense, why? What draws you to this? Why do we do this?
Since I was a little kid, I suffered from nightmares, night terrors. Ever since my dad forced me to watch Night of the Living Dead. He took us downstairs, turned off the lights in the house. Me and my brother, we were very young, and we were too afraid to go elsewhere because Night of the Living Dead was the only light on, was in the house. And so I was either forced to try to find my bed in the dark or stand in front of this horrific film for the next hour and so minutes.
How old were you?
Yeah.
I was young. I was very young. So I think I was like 8 or 9 or something.
I feel like Mitch is laying on our couch all of a sudden now.
Yeah. I'm like, hey guys.
And I'm getting a connection here. Like, I have a similar story. I'm wondering if that's a thing.
We're coming back to that then. But
yeah.
I want to hear it now. Go ahead, share your story.
No, you weren't finished. You do your own trauma first.
And so ever since then, I had night terrors, nightmares. I became very dangerous to be around while I was sleeping. I adopted animalistic qualities, started growling at people. I would punch and lash out at people. I remember one of the most terrifying moments was smashing a mirror and covering myself in blood, blacking out, and then pounding on my parents' door with blood all over the door. And they would not let me in because they were too afraid of what I might do. But I was terrified waking up from this.
Colin, did you not tell me that we accidentally ended up in another one of Mitch's cult games? Is this what's happening here?
Yeah,
are we being GM'd? Because I'm never
keep
quite
it
sure.
Together.
Yeah.
We're totally being GM'd right now. Damn it.
For clarification, you're not shitting us with this story, Mitch.
No,
you're not making this up. This is
that is what happened. I was covered in blood, and when I woke up and was able to kind of get my sense of self again, like my mom said from the other side, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I think I am. I mean, and I looked down and I had all these like cuts on my hands from just kind of whatever I did with that mirror. Came back to my room and like all my stuff was destroyed. And it was terrifying. So since I was a little kid till now and forever on, terror has just been a part of who I am, and it invigorates me. It thrills me. I love watching horror movies. I love walking out on the streets at night by myself. It's just it's I think what I love about horror the most is that it all makes sense. I can understand why Cthulhu comes to our planet and fucks us over, and I understand in Cult that there's a lore. Which am I allowed to curse on here? I probably should ask.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Say whatever the fuck you want.
Already.
Yeah, and then Cult, like there's lore and everything, there's justifications. And growing up in grad school, when I was taking political science and understanding humanity, there was no sense to a lot of the stuff. And horror makes complete sense to me because there's always a story behind it and not just whatever the hell goes on in the real life.
We're gonna come back to that point because I have a disagreement with you on that particular point because I think there's a different type of horror to be drawn from that. But there is. You remind me of something I think it was Alan Moore. Alan Moore said about why when he wrote V for Vendetta, he spent a lot of time studying conspiracy theories. That was a very big part of that. He read into all these different conspiracy theories to get ready for that, to write that book. And what he learned from that was that conspiracy theories, which I consider a form of horror, are extremely comforting to people, weirdly. The paradox that the belief that there's something out there, like even on a cosmological level that is beyond your control, that is secretly running everything, is actually comforting because it means that someone's in control. And what's actually scarier is the truth, which is that the world is rudderless and that there's no one at the helm and that it's all just chaos and there's nothing you can do about it. And like you said, yes, the world doesn't make sense. And horror actually, in a way, containers things. And it oftentimes does. Yes, there is a puppet master kind of pulling the strings behind everything. And I also wanted to share, since we're all doing this, and then Lydia, I'd like to hear yours about our early terror stories, our horror stories from like super early memories. Mine is that I watched Star Wars for the first time when I was, I think, 9. I was staying with my uncle, and he had like a lot of work to do, and he was like he worked from home, and he was working in his basement, and he gave me Star Wars to watch, and I loved it. And then he asked me what I wanted to watch next, and I said more stuff like this, and he's like, okay, and then left me alone in the dark to watch Alien by myself. And I just absolutely I shudder when Alien still gets me to this day. That movie still terrifies me. And it probably stems from all that, and the fact that it's actually terrifying. It's a horrifying movie, but it does still absolutely crush me. So what's yours, Lydia?
The funny thing is that when you talk about an alien terrifying you, I too, as a child, was terrified by an alien. to the point of nightmares and creepy stories forming in my head about this alien. It wasn't the alien. It wasn't the xenomorph. It was fucking ET.
You're not the only person I know
day,
that's scared of ET. ET's
I am
freaky.
to this day horrified to even look. I think it's because ET looks like he feels weird. Like if you touch him, he would feel really, really weird and creepy. And but I'll throw you in the psychological couch thing. I'll throw you in some daddy issues. Basically, if you have the bingo card, people.
Bargain basement. A run on daddy issues. All right, sure, toss it in, free bonus.
No, the thing is, I've always seen a lot of films way before I should be seeing them according to parental guidance ratings, because my father was a weekend father. So he kind of at some point we saw an old Jackie Chan film, and I really loved it. And he told me, "Oh, don't tell your mom that we saw that because it was, violent and stuff." And I was like 4. But because I loved it so much, he kind of felt like, oh, this is a thing we can have. So he started showing me films that shouldn't really be shown to a 6-year-old, like Terminator. But that kind of kept going from there. And it I don't know, maybe because it was special, maybe because it was exciting, because I knew I wasn't supposed to be seeing these things, that then continued into watching things when my mum had fallen asleep on the sofa on a Saturday evening, like Freddy Krueger and stuff. I'd never really been that terrified of the classic horror films when it comes to Freddy Krueger, when it comes to
the old slasher films, the 70s.
The old slasher films, that creepy doll, Chucky.
Child's Play. Yeah, well, those actually kind of suck in my opinion, but that's just
but that's the film that were running on German television anyway in those days. And yeah, it's, I don't know, I've always been very fascinated by them, but not terrified. And I will add another thing to why horror films are possibly such a fit. It resonates so much. It's because of what I mentioned earlier, the less taboos. If you think of the time when these kind of films, you mentioned Alien in particular, when they come out, a lot of these films do what films in early Hollywood did. To shock, to make things unusual, they made the hero a woman. Like early Hollywood films, women had weird professions. They had a job. They were things that no normal housewife would be, because it was shocking and outrageous and outlandish. And that was a similar sort of thing in the 80s in particular, where you had people like Ripley, where you had people like Jamie Lee Curtis and the Halloween films. They were doing things other than pining after men. Sure, it was screaming and running away from horrible murderers, and that is its own not cool and not okay. But in for what they were, for what these films were, that means it kind of defied the standards of society and the expectations of society for women, which makes it exciting.
I think Alien went one further in that it gave you it gave you a heroine, it gave you a badass female lead in Ripley, and that it also made the men essentially victims to an alien rapist is basically what he is. I mean, what the xenomorph basically is. And it completely just subverted all of that. Which is one of the reasons that movie I think holds up, because it's almost like a summation of everything that's scary thrown. The fact that there's fear of the unknown, because you never see the alien for like half the film. You only see it in like the dark, and it's, never really know what you're even dealing with, and it's this inhuman thing. And anyway, we got away from gaming a bit. We're up on film, but I think this is good though, because we're all thinking about the things that kind of scare us. The things that got us into horror gaming are the things that the same kind of thrill you get from being scared by a film. So I guess from the GM side of things, because we do want to do this as more of a GM advice show, Mitch, for me, the two kind of points I really want to discuss with both of you is, one, horror atmosphere, which is its own set of skills, and then horror plotting and horror story, which is its own completely different set of skills, in my opinion. So I'd like to start with Mitch. I know you're more improv heavy, like me. You tend to not plan things, so you're not much of a plotter. But one thing I know that you're exceptionally good at is building horror atmosphere. And I'd like to know, like, for the benefit of for anyone looking to run a horror game, what kind of tips, tricks, how do you approach building a horrific atmosphere in a game?
Yeah, I mean, so I watch a lot of horror movies, and I found in recent years definitely things outside of the U.S. Pushes the envelope on kind of what horror is in general. And from every movie, you see different lenses and perspectives and things that people fear in terms of kind of like the senses that everyone has. And the way that different films emphasize that, I look to that as inspiration, and then bring it back. Because like if you like just to kind of name not a movie that I enjoy, but I definitely liked one scene, and it is one of the Saw movies where they have to get the little item from this pile of syringes.
Oh, it's a very good scene. Yeah, I can picture that. Yeah,
and it's like no one's I mean, people are afraid of syringes, right? But it's the feeling, the weirdness of having to hop into that pile. Like, I'm not afraid of needles, but like that would freak me out, just being in that feeling. And so whenever I run a game and I want to kind of bring someone into the environment, I wonder about all these little things that would freak me out. That's not a jump scare. It's a slight touch of the hand, the things that make your skin kind of crawl up a little bit, the slight feeling of hair in your mouth. It's just,
yeah, brother, you do lots of stuff with mouths.
Mouths. They're like,
it's a powerful thing.
It's the sensory aspect of it, especially, which is a basic storyteller thing that everyone should learn. It's a basic storyteller, I wouldn't even say trick, tool, really. You tell a story, you think you are only applying or appealing to the senses of your ear, auditory senses, whatever, but it's what you try to invoke with what you're saying. It's a sensation, it's a taste, a flavor, it's the sound of fingernails on chalkboard, basically, but in so many ways. And that is individual, that is specific to people. Like you said, mouth things are a little bad for someone, needles for someone else. And the
teeth.
Funny part,
this is Mitch. Teeth.
Yeah, teeth are wonderful. I love that.
That's a good I just think that's a good, there's certain like things you can narrate like that though that are very powerful, very visceral things. Like your mouth is particularly one, because it's a vulnerability. I think there's part of that, especially when you start screwing around with people's teeth. Like I can picture a scene from a horror movie I've seen before of like needles getting put up into somebody's gums. That will make you cringe, and even hearing about it, I'm sure I just said it and someone winced. Like, even hearing about it is enough if you can create that atmosphere.
Yeah, and I think the more you describe the scene, the more it kind of recreates the fight or flight response. As your body kind of goes into that hyperactive, you feel more, you taste more, you smell more, because your body's ready to, either get the hell out or throw down. And a happy day, when I come out and it's a beautiful day, I'm not worried about like what things taste like, or what my shoes feel like on the sidewalk. I'm just like, it's a good day. But when I'm afraid, everything slows down. And recreating that in horror, you just kind of recreate that whole sense of that fight or flight.
That's interesting, though, the way you phrase it. I'd like to ask more about that. You said it in horror, it slows down. Do you feel as if part of maybe what you're saying, what I'm getting here, is that like GM narration in a horror means really dissecting a moment, really slowing down time almost to a point, that you are really piecing apart something and getting every little sight, smell, sound. Was that sort of what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, if you ever been to a haunted house, the really good ones, they don't just hop out at you the first couple of minutes. Like there's this slow build up, and horror movies do that as well. They stretch out these moments that are really like not really relevant, because we're all there for the horror, and there's slight sparkling of story, but really it's kind of the elongation of that moment before the fear. Which I've always loved. It's that, you know, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and the more in game you can describe and lengthen that moment with everyone else, the more people kind of step back and start ingesting everything that you're throwing out on them.
Good part of that is, and I think that's something you did very well with Cult, with Iron Pilgrim, is finding that perfectly mundane moment to suddenly throw something in that is unexpected and incredibly alien to that scene or to that experience or to that sensation, and forcing it through, forcing it in. Because, well, you'd think, well, that doesn't make sense, or that shouldn't belong here right now. But, and that is where I'm coming back to TTRPGs, in a scenario where you literally make up the world as you go, it doesn't need to make sense. If anything goes, and if that's the premise, which is what happened in Cult, and which makes it so very special, that creates an everlasting tension where you know that at every point, in every moment of domestic bliss and just normalcy, something could happen, and most likely something does happen.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
So I have in chat, Pope is asking, is there a happy medium with pacing? Which and then he follows up with, or is it more expand and contract? So I think there's, I think maybe part of that is there a consistency of pacing that you kind of need in horror, or does it actually work better if pacing kind of speeds up, slows down, expands, contracts, wax and wanes throughout? What are your thoughts on that, Mitch?
I would definitely say, like, as someone who relies on improv a lot, I focus on where people are at and what kind of gives them a little shiver. Sometimes when I'm running alien role-playing game, you know, when they first investigate the kind of the shaft and they stick their arm in there trying to figure out what's blocking the fan, sometimes I just let that be the moment. Because the people are anticipating it, you know, they're salivating, they want it now. And then others are like, oh, I know an alien's gonna come up, and then I'm like, nah, there's nothing there. Shut the fuck up. Continue on. And I think it's really like it's just reading the crowd. I think horror, more than any other TTRPG, you really gotta watch them, because if you're trying for a scary moment and they're not buying it, you as a GM are gonna be like, it's gonna be sad. You're gonna feel bad. You're gonna cry. It's gonna haunt you for years. Not that it's ever happened to me, but yeah, it will do it for you. You just gotta watch and listen.
So know thy audience and know thy players. Being like anything else, really, but I think especially with horror.
Oh yeah,
that applies to any genre in TTRPG that isn't horror. I would hope. It's just that while other games or other genres don't necessarily fall apart immediately when the GM is not able to do that, horror will. Just like you said, the GM is more vulnerable that way, almost.
Yeah.
You can tell who has a knack for what the players feel, go through, are able to take, and who doesn't.
Yeah, and there's really nothing worse than your horror story collapsing before your eyes because you're not getting buy-in, because it requires a certain level of buy-in.
Oh, it does. Yeah. If you have someone who comes up on your table and is like, I'm not afraid of nothing. Just he's not.
Why are you here?
Yeah, he's not for your table. It's sad, but you don't want that feeling when you go on into a table. It's, you know, it's the same way about everyone who tries to be macho man at every like Halloween haunted house. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for the people acting who have to stay out there. Like, you're there to have fun and be afraid. Being afraid is part of that. You have to buy it.
I will say breaking those is the best part, though.
Breaking
And
people
I'm
at haunted
coming at
houses.
this point from the ghost tour guide experience here, because you have, especially men, because I'm sorry, but you know, I fully understand you. It's a rough spot to be in because you will be ridiculed by everyone if you show fear, because you have to be tough and manly. That's bad. That's a whole new level of wrong, and we're gonna talk about that, society. But that means that men in particular coming up to ghost tours will go above and beyond to show you that they're afraid of nothing, and that you, old ghost tour guide girl, what do you even want? So that is my most beautiful, those are my most beautiful victories and moments and my most treasured memories, when it's them that jump and maybe even yelp a little bit, and it's them that at the end go, oh my god, that was weird. Like, or even just a magnanimous, you know what, that was actually good. I really felt that there. I'm like,
The classic actually thrown in there, just so
I'll
it's not
take
like
it.
really a compliment.
I'll take it. You sort out the rest of your toxic
Yeah.
masculinity with yourself. That's not my problem. But yeah, it's definitely a factor that is tricky.
Well, so
And
let's
for TTRPGs where you want to, you know, all
Yeah.
pull together, why would you even do that? It's tricky, but it can be incredibly rewarding to
Well, so
then
let's-
show this person that it can be nice to
let's
be
talk
scared.
about that.
So-
Like, how do you get? You know, okay. While we agree that it's just not for everyone, some people are going to come to a table and just not buy in. They're just. I've dealt with this. I just dealt with this recently in running a Monster of the Week game with some friends of mine.
Yeah.
You know, someone at the table who just wasn't there to be scared and therefore is never going to have as much fun as they could with this game if they did it. But but putting that aside, that some people are just going to reject the premise. How do you get buy-in? Are there ways you can get that from people?
The TTRPG relevant aspect there is tricky, because if are they even aware of this? Are they even aware of their own closed offness? Ideally, you'll have had your session 0. Ideally, you have talked about this. If they believe wholeheartedly, yeah, no, I'm here for it, but then every time something even remotely scary comes up, they start making stupid jokes about it and blocking it off. Clearly you are not here for it, but I don't think you have the wherewithal and the self-awareness to realize that. Then is it worth talking about it? Is it even worth forcing this person to buy in?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be scary either. I mean, when that's the premise, sure, but if we're talking about the same Monster of the Week thing, then you don't necessarily have to have every single person on the table completely go for the fear and for the horror. You can take the silly as a nice little balancing act, which you did. It's the fear and the terror for everyone else, and with the pacing being what it is and ebbing and flowing. Okay, when we have a scene that is supposed to be a bit more relaxing, when we have to have a scene that is a little bit more silly, then we're going to shift the focus to that particular character, because we know that's what they're here for.
This is not a Monster of the Week game that I ran on stream, I'm referring to, by the way.
Fair enough. I thought that's what you meant.
No. They were all great.
Everyone. Perfect.
They were there, and that was a great... that's me. Like, my style of horror is oftentimes horror. It's different from Mitch's, that's for sure, because I punctuate with much more silliness than I think Mitch does. Mitch consistently scares the fuck out of me for 3 hours, whereas I can't go that long without making a joke. I get physically ill. I can't do it.
We still need to do, because I still want, before the end of the year, and now that I'm in my office, and we need to finish off I Am Pilgrim the way I've always wanted to, you know?
With me in it?
Yeah. It's just going to be you and me on stream for 3 hours.
Oh, you wanted to stream that?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, now he said it on stream, so now it has to happen, I think.
Yeah, I want to know what happens.
I leave you alone for 5 minutes and you kill everyone.
Oh, that was yeah, you're right.
I would be more than I would love to do that. Can I get a witness from the audience? But yes, I would absolutely love to do that. That'd be very fun.
Woo!
Step back into old Dom for an evening. Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh yeah. And so going back to that question, like horror has such a broad amount of different types of horror within it, right? You have Cabin in the Woods horror, and then you have like Hellraiser and It and all sorts of different things. I remember a couple of months ago, someone wanted help writing like a horror TTRPG, and the first question I asked was, "What type of horror?" Because my type is going to be very different, probably from your type, because there's just a huge like Call of Cthulhu for me. It's fun. I enjoy it, but for me, it's not horrific.
Interesting. So it's the cosmological horror doesn't hit you as much?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think like Color Out of Space, I mean anything with Nick Cage and Cthulhu, I think is just freaky in general. But that was pretty scary. And I think they pulled a lot of themes from other kind of creepy movies like The Thing. Oh man. But
the thing is like my top 3.
It is so
favorite.
good. People need to stop using CGI. Go back to puppets. Puppets need to come back.
Can we just... the best practical effects I've ever seen in a film in The Thing.
Bring back puppets.
Oh,
I want
so
puppets
good.
on the street. I want them crawling around on the sidewalk. I want them investigating and having
That's
fun
everyone's homework. Anyone watching this who hasn't seen The Thing, like, please...
I actually haven't seen The Thing.
Anyone in this show who hasn't seen The Thing...
All right, cue it up.
No, but yeah. How quickly did Colin get kicked off Twitch forever?
Oh man, it's
Throw
fine.
on The Thing.
But when I was running games at conventions and stuff, and there was that kind of one man out. For me, it was either I can get them to buy in because everyone else is buying in, or I just kind of tone it down to a horror with some comedic value that I think that they would appreciate in their current mood and that everyone else would appreciate. I definitely don't advise going like gun-ho despite like your players. You should always just kind of match the tone that your players are kind of sending back to you. If people are like laughing, and just go with that and have those little horror moments too. In the end, it's just about having fun and not about you telling your great horror novel story.
It's always the thing that, especially when it's one-shots or when it's shorter games, who are you really doing it for? Because ideally you're doing it for your players. That's literally your job as a GM. Doesn't mean you're, just a tool, but it does mean that if someone doesn't want to buy in, like we said, then you don't need to force them. You just divvy up the various attentions and the various forms of narration. I think it's possible to still get them. It's possible to do it if you give them some extra attention, if you slowly lead them to it. That's what I do with the ghost tours. It's talking to them. It's figuring out why they are like that, or what, is it because in this case because the family is there, because they have to show off to someone.
Yeah.
A bit like that, yeah.
I just like the Go ahead, sorry. I just like the idea of Lydia out in the night, scaring macho men and sending them home crying. I think that makes me happy.
That's my day job normally, or when there's not a pandemic out. I have a whip and all. I get to hang people and burn them for witchcraft. It's fun.
Wow. You shouldn't, as your attorney, you shouldn't say that on air.
Yeah. The admission.
It's my job. It's
I don't think
we
that
have
will
a
hold up
story
in
of
saying
two
you're
court.
just
Englishmen
following
that were
orders,
whipped
Lydia?
in Edinburgh in
Jesus.
1652. And we pick two Englishmen and we whip them. And when they're nice, we just pretend we're whipping them. When they go, make your typical 50 Shades of Grey joke and go harder, as if I've never heard that one before in 6 years of ghost tour guiding, well, then they get what they ask for.
To be fair, I would make that joke, but I would.
And you would get what you asked
Yeah.
for.
Well,
Well, that's
fair.
the sort of the
I think-
point. I imagine.
Yeah, I think everyone wins. That sounds awesome, though.
It's good fun.
Like, oh man, like I always admire the ghost tour people because it's a lot of fun in their ability to kind of cultivate using kind of historical context and just the environment to have that spooky setting. It's really fun.
My approach to it is usually making it more historical. A, because I don't believe in ghosts, which I'm technically not supposed to say being a ghost tour guide, but I always do. And B, because honestly, I find history is a lot more terrifying than anything people could make up. Because people have made horrible things up and then done them to other people. And I don't think we realize that. Being where we are, relatively affluent Western world and so on and so forth. And when you have the time to create that atmosphere and to properly have people imagine what it's like to be like that. We just had our little storytelling thing about witch burnings, and when you read the protocols, the very sort of what they did to them, and it's just matter of factly, and you think it's hundreds of women in particular, but men as well, hundreds of people, and it's just what it is, and that's just a tiny blip on the graph of human history and human atrocities. That is horrible. And that is that horror that is suddenly incredibly real, and that's powerful to have that reality. Obviously you then have to try and create the fun aspect and balance both of these things out, and I think that's what makes a good ghost tour in particular, to come away with a new realization similar to what we said about TTRPGs, and to have learned something, but also to be entertained at the same time. And in a way I think that is applicable to both of these aspects.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, because this goes back to what I thought was a disagreement I had with Mitch earlier, that because horror does come in so many forms, there's so many ways you can bring in horror without even, and the way that you were just describing, Lydia, even though it's a ghost tour, but by hitting on the history, you could leave all the ghost stuff out and that would still be scary. There's no shortage of great, I mean, one of my favorite examples here being that, like, the same year that 1984 came out was the year that North Korea came into existence. And you'd almost like to think that someone got a hold of an advanced copy and was like, you think we could try this? I bet you we could probably make this work. So even though it's a horrific story, it also has a horrific real-life analog that's every bit as scary. And, you know, I'm working with this now and getting ready to do Tentacle Tuesdays for Encounter Roleplay with Achtung Cthulhu, where I have Nazis I have to deal with. And I can't make them any scarier with the Cthulhu mythos. They're already plenty scary as they are, and they're plenty scary because they're normal people. Because they're just like you and me, and we're still capable of doing horrific things. That is scary enough as it is. I don't need to add anything to that to make it scarier, which is why it's such a benefit that I get Elder Gods to throw at them. Just that's all gravy at that point.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do with the beginning stories, because it's always what we talk about, the various whippings, hangings, and so forth, always involving the mob, involving the people, and that's the starting with a bang, which I think is something Mitch does incredibly well at the beginning of one-shots and games. That establishes who you are as a GM, and that establishes a certain sense of, I don't want to say sense of authority because that's a loaded term, but a sense of,
Especially with GMs, yeah.
Yes, very much so. What you can bring to the table as a GM, the things you can create for your players if they are willing to work with you. Similar there, because we have this mob story, always a mob story, and you get the people to interact, you have the two people being whipped and the witch here, and what would the mob scream back then? Burn her, and there's always people who start playing along, laughing, having the best of times, and you're like, yeah, and at the end of it, and you applaud and you say thank you to your volunteers, and thank you to you as well, because you were part of this. You were incredibly willing to jeer the suffering of people you've never met before, complete strangers that, as far as you know, have not done a single bad thing in their lives. But how quickly it is possible to be swept up in that group screaming and that group jeering and going into the psychological aspect that way is
and I wanted to I'd like to toy with...
suddenly the reality hits via something fun.
And the opposite is just as terrifying that I'm dealing with now in my brain working through Acton Cthulhu, which is you don't even need to join in. Apathy's enough. Just
good point.
Not caring and being indifferent is enough to fuel horror. That's enough to make it work.
The complacent middle class.
Yeah. But that's a good point. Lydia, you brought up a good point about kind of, starting with a bang and setting the tone. And Mitch, I'd like to ask you about that. Do you think that that's sort of a technique that you use? Is it about sort of setting the tone early, letting people know what they're in for? Or is it just getting a hot start and having fun quickly? Like, what sort of inspires you to really hit the ground running in a lot of your games? Because you do tend to, like when I played you do tend to build, you oftentimes... I kind of noticed, I started to get a sense of kind of your narrative rhythm, and you do often start with just building a little bit of slow dread, let people get their feet under them, but always, always, always pushing with just little bits of dread, and then you hit hard. Very, very hard. And I'm curious, like, what kind of goes through your head when you're when you're starting a game and setting a tone and really trying to establish a horror universe?
Yeah, I for me, it kind of goes back to all the stories and the movies I watch and the things I really appreciated. Like there are some times where a nice dread will kind of make that final horrific moment amazing and brilliant. But I always applaud the horror movies that are able to, within like the first 15 minutes, establish that this is going to be horrifying for the rest of the movie. We're going to keep you horrified. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be things you've never seen before. And I've always applauded them like, hot damn, I did not think I would be scared for that long. And so in that same way, I really enjoy kind of just hammering it down, as you said, like, and it really goes into what I see from people. How are they reacting? Are they still enjoying themselves? And can I keep pushing the envelope? Because I mean that's kind of going back to discussion that we've always had, which is safety tools in horror. If you have your safety tools covered, your ability to push greatly increases, because they've given you permission, and then they've also given you the rails, and within that context continuing to push the envelope like every horror game or movie or show should. Just keep at it. I've always loved that.
I'd like to make a point on that about safety tools, because this is something I learned really only in the last year, because safety tools, while they've been around for a while, I always played, until COVID hit, I always played home games with people in person who I've known for like my whole life. Yeah. And we didn't do it. We never felt the need to. Now I do them even with people I know, because I realize that's just the best way to do it. But what I love, you said something in there I absolutely love, Mitch, which is they're giving you the keys to the kingdom in a way. They're telling you what they're afraid of, and they're also giving you not just the parameters of how far you can go, but they're also kind of, by implication, giving you invitations to what you can do. They're giving you the rails, and when I do Lines and Veils, I always do Lines, Veils, invitations. I actually specifically ask people, what would you like to see, and I will probably do it. But one thing I think as a horror GM, one thing you should embrace about Lines and Veils is that it's not just a safety tool, though it is definitely that. It also, think of it as an opportunity, because they're kind of exposing some things to you that then can shape the world, that you can contour the world around that and still find things that are scary, but without hitting that. And I'll give you, like, the craziest example was when I ran a Monster of the Week game, and someone put under Veil's blood, and I was like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do?
Yeah,
like, what am I gonna do? I can't put blood on screen? Like, what the fuck? But then it's like, well, no, this is like, don't freak out, Colin. You can still make this scary. Like, it just live up, like, rise to the occasion and accept the challenge. How do I make this scary? Well, a monster that completely exsanguinates people and leaves them dried out husks without a drop of blood in them. That's scary, and it doesn't require blood. You can do this. Like, take the opportunity, read your lines and veils, utilize them, and then you'll find that you can actually get new ideas from this that are terrifying. By omitting some kind of, even if you're omitting something as obviously classic horror element as blood, you can still do this.
Oh, there's so many ways to terrify people.
Oh, never fails.
We've while you were talking about safety tools, really, we've had the question earlier about session zeros, which is, of course, where you should establish your safety tools. Pope's been asking, how's the best way to run a session zero that is particularly geared towards a horror group and a horror game?
Mitch,
Is there a difference?
Mitch, what do you think?
Yeah, so when I talk to people, because I recently did a cult game for like horror enthusiasts, but they've never played a TTRPG before, or they just play D&D. And so I'm like, this is gonna be a completely different experience, because it's different from watching a horror movie, and it's very different being at the table and being a part of a horror experience, especially one where cult invites you to be a part of the horror. You are a horrific person. You scare people just as much as the other side does.
That's a good point. With the cult universe,
Fia was ridiculous. Like, the things you people did in that show for I Am Pilgrim is terrifying, and I didn't even have to touch it. You guys were so much a part of the horror. And so it's very different. So it's very important to discuss with them that this is going to be a new and different experience, and that's okay. But definitely try to, you gotta communicate the seriousness of lines and veils. And I know my work at cons, it's been very frustrating to have people kind of immediately dismiss it or not take it seriously, or not even listen to the instructions. Like, you really have to hammer in that this is not a joking point. Like, don't make fun of anyone, don't make fun of yourself, because this is all about setting up boundaries, and in order to set up boundaries, you got to take it seriously. So making sure as a GM, communicating that session zero in this, especially in horror, is very, very serious, and to have people respect it. I think that's probably the most important part of the horror social contract, or lines and veils in a horror thing, probably more so than anything else.
Yeah, I would say, as from an extremely practical tip, when I do horror specifically and I do lines and veils, I tell people, you need to review this, add to it whatever you need to add to it, and then you need to tell me that you've done it. Like, communicate to me, I have reviewed it, I have added it, and if you reviewed it and there's nothing to add, communicate to me, I have nothing to add. But for my own peace of mind, I need to know that everyone's looked at it and that they're okay with it, and that they've added everything they need to add. Because, look, like, it's okay. Sometimes you will, like, in life, in TTRPGs, just as in life, you will occasionally put your foot in your mouth and you will say the wrong thing, and you will possibly offend someone, you will possibly make someone uncomfortable, and that's why we have XN and O cards and abilities to stop the game and evaluate. And it's good that we do all that, but I can't sit here and tell you that it doesn't suck when it happens to you, because it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't feel good. As a GM, for me personally, I take that to heart. If I feel like I've accidentally harmed someone with something I've done, it really hurts. It sucks. So you want to try to avoid it. Don't be when it happens, embrace it, because it's good that people are using the tools at their disposal. Like, embrace the fact that someone drew an X card and that they're willing to actually take that step. That's not a bad thing. Don't be ashamed of it. It's okay that it happened. And it's good that people are using the tools at their disposal. Should never be. No one should ever be afraid to do it. You should never be ashamed of doing it. However, I'm just not going to be able to sit here and tell you that it doesn't still kind of suck, because it does kind of, you feel like maybe you screwed up. And maybe that's a failure on my part, that it, maybe I should just maybe lean into that a little bit more and just not overthink it. But I don't enjoy it. I don't like it when it happens to me. So I guess I'm just agreeing with you really much that take your lines and veils in your session 0 very, very seriously. Impress upon them the seriousness of it. And then be sure to, Dracu makes a very strong point in chat that someone may not realize something's an X until it happens. Things happen. It comes up. And you just roll with the punches. But yeah, take it, impress the seriousness of it onto your players. Take it very seriously. Do that in session 0. Set that tone up front. And I don't care how many times you've played with these people. Go over it again and explain what it all means.
Things change, pains come up, things creep up. It's really just communication, having that way of communicating. Because whether or not you raise that X card, the hurt or the pain's still there. Right. And the X card is really just communicating in a way so that people understand. And the more that's accepted, the better everyone feels afterwards, because then you get to deal with that however you choose to. Whether by going to the bathroom and just taking a 15-minute break, it's all up to you. But the better we can address people's feelings, I think it just makes the game infinitely better.
I think for the general question of session 0 for a horror game, she says never having ran an official horror game as such, but I guess the Vault games count.
Feels heavy. Some pretty feels heavy games though, and that gets close too.
Yeah.
But it's the amount of communication that goes beyond something to write on paper in a column of lines and veils. The amount of care as a human being, really, which it's sometimes hard, or it's sometimes a little bit tricky when you have a group for stream games in particular, where you feel like we only really ever meet for this one particular session, and then we barely talk for a week with that other person, because you don't really get to know the person. You only ever really meet them in character. I feel like, and clearly in what we're doing when we are in several stream games, it's not always entirely possible to get to know every single person you're playing with, and you don't always gel with every single person you're playing with on a personal level either, even if you get along well in game. But I feel like the best games I've ran and played in were the ones where you start to actually make friends, where you start to actually talk to the people outside of your game, outside of your character, and that is something you can then use. That is something you can once you understand this person better, you'll be able to run a better game for them. There's no way around it. So as a GM in particular, when it comes to session 0s, is what I'm going to trying to do is to further and to promote and to facilitate that sort of connection, that sort of friendship building outside the actual we meet every week, once a week, 3 to 6. Obviously that's not always possible. It's not going to happen every single fucking time, and it's not your job to do it, but I feel like it's going to be beneficial for everyone to kind of be that matchmaker, make me a match.
I like that goes so much into what makes a good GM. Like, if you really want to improve your ability to storytell and to GM, somebody might kill me. I would say don't look to Matt Mercer, look to your players, right? The greater relationship you have with them, the more you're able to cultivate a story that they are interested in. And that will have a greater response of success than tricks of the trade and stuff that you can learn from a stream. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, which is funny because we're sort of underwriting the premise of this entire episode we're doing here. But
I know, right?
There is no, but I totally agree with you. There is no right way to GM. There's only the right way to GM for the table that you're at. that's really what it comes down to. You can watch as much Critical Role as you want, but if you ate Matt Mercer and then go do that for 4 random people plucked off the street, it just might not work for them. It's just that style just might not work. Because that requires a very specific kind of player. I mean, in the case of Critical Role, that specific kind of player are people who are professional voice actors who have been playing TTRPGs for a long time. But if it's a new, I GM'd a Monster of the Week group 2 weeks ago of people who'd never played a TTRPG before. I can't come at them like Matt Mercer. It won't work. That style will not work.
And for the record, we fully know that Matt Mercer would be the first person to agree
I
with
know,
us here.
and I have no shade to Matt. Like,
no dunking, even though I know you like to do it.
No shade to Matt. I do sometimes get on a Critical Role soapbox, but no shade to Matt, because Matt would be the first person to absolutely would be the first person to agree with me on that. That there really, because the essential point always being that as long as everyone's having fun, you're doing it right. It doesn't matter what that is. I mean, I hate dungeon crawls, but some people like dungeon crawls. I don't know.
Me too. I don't like it. In general, I don't like Dungeons and Dragons, but I play it sometimes, but it's definitely
some are good for some other things.
Yeah.
Some RPGs work better for certain stories, and that's always the way to look at it. That it's do the mechanics of this game service the kind of story that I want to tell, and that his table wants to tell together. And if the mechanics don't fit, and if the game doesn't fit, get a new game. It's not a big deal. Find something that works. Switch to Zweihander, play Cult, whatever you got to do.
Just play Cult. It's okay.
Or just play Cult.
Just play Cult. It works for any type of setting. If you want to run fantasy, romance, Cult, doesn't matter.
Do you want to do I like this challenge of this would actually be fun of mismatched RPGs.
Yes.
Where we'll play a traditional high fantasy Tolkien-esque setting, but use Cult for the game.
Oh my god!
Count me in.
I ran a campaign where I accidentally did that, and this was me being stupid. But I had told everyone that it was going to be a dark game, but they assumed it was D&D dark. And when I took it to more dark than that, halfway through, I was like, I need feedback, and someone was like, "It's too dark. I can't." And I'm like, I am so sorry. That was my bad. I should have communicated a little bit better. But I am all for that. I would love a Cult romance fantasy game.
Could I ask, what was the game that you mismatched? What were you using?
I was using D&D 5e, and people were being crucified, and people were eating people. Half the players ate one of the other players' wife.
It was a Mitch campaign.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrifying, and I was like, "Yeah, it's so hard for me not to throw in some horror."
This is where you need your one player to hold on to, and just every now and then look at them whether they're going.
Yeah, they're like, Mitch, tone it down.
It does help to have that person who knows your tendencies, who can be like, "Dude, take it."
Yeah, I always want Lydia around to let me know if I'm doing too much horror. I need.
And I will.
Yeah. You're like, hey, dial it back. I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
Why am I everyone's call out person?
I don't know. You're just good.
Because you have no fear of calling out.
Yes. You whip people for your job. I think that has prepared you to call people out.
We have time for a few
Something
more
I should have disclosed before you took me on for Encounter.
You've got time for a few more if you've got more from chat, Lydia.
We do have a couple, and speaking of genres and speaking of subgenres in this case, because we talked about what kind of horror is your horror, what is your favorite style of horror in TTRPGs is what Cat, Cleric of Chord, is asking.
Okay, so for me, my favorite kind of horror, anyone who's been at my Monster of the Week games, that's my favorite kind of horror. It's that I have the most fun doing. So I kind of have two answers to that, because there's the kind that I aspire to do, that I wish I could do better, and that I'm working on. And then there's stuff I think I actually do well, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer level horror, which is I'm going to scare you. I'm going to give you scary shit to deal with, but I'm also going to do it in a way that's kind of I feel like I naturally want to put a little bit of a barrier between you and the horror a little bit by putting in a layer of camp. There's that kind of little protective film of camp and of cinematic kind of elements. I do some kind of Lydia makes fun of me, but I do camera angle narration in Monster of the Week a lot of times. I will do things like, that fade to black, or I will say camera pans down and zooms in and stuff like that. And I make no bones about this, because what I love about that is that it's a little bit of a kind of fourth wall breaking, reminding you that we're all just telling a story here. In a way, it's almost that reminder. It's almost a layer of artifice, a layer of facade that doesn't allow the, I don't know, maybe I should get off of this, but it makes it so that you don't take everything too seriously, lean into the horror when it's happening, but then we're all just here telling a story, and let's tell a cool story. Like I'm mostly interested in, is it cool, is it interesting, is it fun? And then while the players are on screen, am I freaking them out? But then I do lots of stuff off screen. I do post credit scenes and stuff like that.
Yes,
I love to
those are amazing. I love those, and they're like, man, I know it, but my character doesn't know it. And it bothers me, and I'm like, yes, it should bother you. It should
bother you because classic horror technique, though, it's not even horror. This is way older than horror. It's just dramatic irony. It's just using dramatic irony. I'm gonna put an idea out there that but your character doesn't know, and there's nothing you can do about it, because you might know that there's someone on the other side of that door. But your character doesn't know, so don't be metagaming, fool. Like I love that, and that itself is its own kind of form of horror, because it makes people like squirm.
Yeah, it's like that's a chocolate chip cookie. You think it's a chocolate chip cookie? Eat the chocolate chip cookie. It's fine. What
could go wrong?
Yeah, it's just a chocolate chip cookie.
And I'll say, as far as my favorite to be part of, really, is the kind of stuff I think Mitch does, which is what I would call cults. And Mitch, I don't think we've ever really talked about what genre I Am Pilgrim was when we did I Am Pilgrim. But to me, it's a kind of chaos horror. It's a nothing makes sense horror, and you can try all you want. I do remember that there was a line in I Am Pilgrim where, after like Dalfia, spoilers for I Am Pilgrim, by the way, where after Dalfia fell apart, I, as Dom, said, it's like, I'm just trying to piece my world has been shattered. Everything I thought I knew is gone, and I'm trying to piece it back together. And the more I try to piece it back together, the more it just falls apart.
Yeah,
it just keeps breaking like shards of porcelain, and that was the horror to me of that game, and I that was such a joy to be involved in, because I love that whole it doesn't make sense. It's basically horror of nihilism in a way. It doesn't make sense, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's like, one thing I did not like when Call of Cthulhu did was when they statted out like Cthulhu. It's unknowable. It's Cthulhu. You can't stat them out. There should just be a giant question mark there, or like a WTF. And some of my favorite horror movies, like Atareros, which is half the movie, I'm like, what the hell's happening? But I love it. Or I Saw the Devil, where at the end, he is much worse off because of the actions he's done, and he cries as he continues to walk towards the camera, and there's no feel good, there's no dessert, there's no curtain close. It's just, you get this feeling that this is not going to end, and it won't be a satisfying ending even if there was. I've always enjoyed that, but Korean films, I think, do really well with that kind of weird ending. Old Boy had a very weird ending, and that's something that I really like about it, because you're like, where the hell do we go now? And I don't know, and I like it.
So is that your favorite to GM, that sort of atmosphere, that sort of world?
Yeah, I think for me, the moment I can kind of piece together what's happening, the less scary it becomes. And I like the just broken glass on the ground. It's everywhere. It's chaotic, and I think nothing says more about kind of breaching into a world that you don't truly understand by reflecting that within the story itself. When the characters and the players are like, I don't know what happened, but I was terrified. I think that's always like a good goal to have if you want that sort of nihilistic horror at the end of the thing, you know?
One thing I did like about and I agree with you, like statting out Cthulhu was stupid, because one thing that works about the Cthulhu mythos, about why that's scary, is that it does, kind of going back to what I said about conspiracy theories, it does give you an answer. It gives you an answer to what's going on. It's just the real answer is that you can't understand it. It's that there are larger forces at work. There are things controlling your day-to-day life, basically. You just can't comprehend it. You can try, but you'll go insane trying. You just... And, of course, what comes with that, too, is the horror of the fact that you are tiny and insignificant, and you are a speck of dust floating in a sunbeam, and that your life doesn't matter at all, and nothing you do matters, and you can try to scream into the void, but it's too bad, nothing will ever change. That's powerful stuff, and that's very fun to GM, too, and it's a difficult... I think that's... Cosmological horror I find very hard to GM.
Very hard.
It's very, very tricky. To communicate that existential dread in narration, it's hard. I've heard some very good examples of how of it done in podcast form and stuff like that, but it's definitely a skill set I'm still learning.
If you ever watch The Void, which is probably the best kind of eldritch cosmological horror movie to come out within the last 5 years, the fact that at the end it leaves you with more questions than when you first started, I think is a good show that, it's good. They've done their job.
Is that the one with the guy who dies in the beginning?
It's the one where they go underneath a hospital.
Oh, okay.
And very like they used I think very similar techniques to The Thing with very practical effects, which I applaud them for. But yeah,
keep the puppeteers in business.
Keep the puppets. Puppets need jobs too. Like the unemployment never factors in puppets who are just out there wandering the street at night. Help our puppets.
Yep. And we forgot to put the donation link up, but we'll have one in the tweet for you to donate to the
for the price of a cup of coffee.
You
can sponsor a puppet who will live in your house.
It's all just drug money for the Perception Studio puppets that we're getting them.
Yes.
Because you can't fucking tell me that Cucumber doesn't smoke a joint every now and then.
Yeah, seeing them on Rest in Pieces be so vulgar, I was like, if I had a dream, it would be to have those puppets in a cult game.
Ooh. All we're doing is the show's just evolving into us pitching shows that we have.
I know, right?
We have Mismatched Mondays is already proposed by Pope.
Mr. Real Bulbo says we should do the Beneath the Sea or Beyond the Grave RPG. That one's really fun.
I'm not aware of that one.
I never played that one.
Yeah, it's very kind of campy, like, you know, it came from beneath the sea, and you can like put in your body double to act out a scene for you, and then return back to the original actor. So it's very kind of like
that's
very
super artifice.
Meta, very meta. So I ran it a couple months, or actually last year, and it was awesome. Oh, I had it around here, and gosh darn me, putting things away.
Oh, I want it.
See, when it comes to the horror, again, the horror thing, I would never really consider myself completely into horror, like, because I connect that with slasher films so much, and I'm like, meh, towards them.
Yeah, slasher.
But what I absolutely adore to this day and forever will, things like Cube. One of my favorite films. Cube.
What? Oh, I
fucking love it.
Cube.
Cube is
I've never seen that.
Brilliant, and it's so simple, yet because again it's all in your head. That's what I like. I don't like the existential stuff, like the world of horror is the world around you inflicts that upon you. I love it when people make it up in their own brain and create their horror in their own mind.
Yeah.
I love to be the devil's advocate, the little devil on the shoulder of the player that going with Song of the Deep, which isn't a horror campaign in any way, shape, or form, but going, you hear the Mother River of blood talk to you, and you want it. You want to
I
just
love
dive
doing
in
that.
there, and just giving them that little push for them to go to feel safe and to
Yes.
feel, because as a player you're often sitting there, especially in a D&D campaign, and you think there's a right move and a wrong move. You think, I should do this, oh no, I shouldn't do that. But that's where the GM can help, hopefully, where you're like encouraging the bad decision basically.
Oh yeah.
Because it's going to be so much fun.
I just
And
did
it
that.
is.
I just did that Monster of the Week with Laura's character there, who was nice enough to give me poor impulse control as one of her dark side tags. So like, you get to do that. You get to be that little snake in the Garden of Eden, and be like, I think you really want to steal that. I'm pretty sure you want to do that.
You should eat that person. Just saying. Ranch looks good on him.
I know I did. Without ranch even. But that's what I enjoy. And that's what I really enjoyed about college as well. To kindly and sweetly create the scenario where players destroy themselves.
Yeah, Mitch did that. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, oh yeah,
you don't need to like
that. I will say a lot of, because again, I never really ran a campaign like that, because I feel like, God, people don't want that. People want to be heroes and they want their Tolkien-esque stories. And I will say, Song of the Deep, a lot of those kind of moments that were a little bit more going into the horror world, or even deep psychological, people destroying themselves thing, a lot of that was enabled by watching Cult and going, it can work.
Yeah.
And Colin being in that show and coming in from Cult and going, I want to fuck myself up some more.
Yes.
Maybe a glutton for self-punishment.
One of my favorite things I've been doing recently is basically playing a cult character in every Pathfinder or D&D game I have. So like everyone's like at this like D&D level, and I come in and I'm like have this dark secret, and I'm like, oh my God. It's one of my favorites. Also, did you know that there's a cube Penarax dungeon that you can use for like a fantasy game? It's ridiculous and crazy, and I ran it for my group and they hated it. But
hated it good or hated it bad?
They hated it because like the cube is a relentless and crazy puzzle. Yeah. And trying to communicate it at a table. Like I had an Excel sheet that helps me track their movements, and I'm like, you know what? This is I'm gonna run it.
I hate it already.
I'm not going to, because I will probably throw myself off a cliff.
Anything that requires me to have a fucking spreadsheet open that isn't full of people's biggest fears, then I'm not into it.
It was crazy. I was like, I will never try to run the cube dungeon again unless I just hate people.
Is that where Dom went? Is in your
Dom went just went into my cube. It's amazing.
Thank you, Kat.
Oh yes, you did do some horror. Give yourself some credit. You did do some horror, because that was some horrific shit.
I'm not going to deny that. I just said it's not a horror setting. It's
certainly
not a specific horror setting.
Yeah, definitely. You hit it.
But again, that's what I enjoy. Something that's not technically classified as horror, but really is, like mind control, like the wiping out of memories. All of that is not necessarily in D&D. It's normal, and it's a fucking punchline half the time.
I know. Dominate person, like,
or even just modify memory. 10 minutes just gone.
It's like, what did you just do?
But that's what, just as much as interrogating, I love the historical part of it because it's real. I love the human part of it because it's real, and that ups the ante so hard, and that's the great part about it. What we had with the Souled Memories of Shadow Realm, and I'm forever so happy that Kobold Press has this as a normal thing. And again, for them, it's a cultural quirk of the Shadow Elves. While you sell memories and turn it into spirits because it tastes delicious when someone's sad. Dude, that's
horrific.
Terrifying
as
fuck.
That is absolutely horrific.
Have you guys played Changeling the Lost?
I want to. Ever since you mentioned it, when we talked about when we played Good Strong Hands, I'm so desperate to play.
I will run it for whoever, because it is it is a terrifying, whimsical game where you trade off memories and stuff, and it's just like, oh my god,
Give it to me.
so good. In the new edition, they did a lot of good stuff to make it much more manageable and tasty.
Yeah.
So,
Good point, Kat. Yeah, I know GMs have disallowed spells like modify memory, and that's fair. Honestly, that is absolutely fair because that GM knows that it's a lot heavier with potentially more consequences than a player might recognize at first. What I did in Lessons in Cheat Magic, talk to the players about it. We constantly had the communication, just like you guys did with Cult in the background. When I had people mind controlled during the Bard battle by the enemy Bard, I checked in with all players first. Is it going to be okay if that happens to you? Because you're going to have a wisdom save, and if you fail, you will do that.
It was okay.
And if it's okay for everyone else. I was in a
okay for me.
I was in a Pathfinder game.
You fucking loved it.
I was in a Pathfinder game and I was dominated and I wreaked havoc and the players were very upset and I was like, oh man, well, we should have checked in. Like everyone should have checked in. But that just goes into communication. Like,
yeah. But no, we had that communication on. We had that question mark on a lot. Same with last time. Weird shit happened. And it's just such a gift when a player goes, fuck me up, fam.
Oh, yes. Like, I hate it. I was playing, it was the first time I ran Cult, and someone, because of another character's or a player's decision, was like, that's really stupid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you need to get out my table. Because so stupid is amazing. It really stupid is going after the most dramatic and enticing road. Because if you're just sitting around trying to do the smart thing or stay safe in a game, like you're not really telling much of a story.
It's like Lydia and I talk about this often. It's the attitude that you can like win at an RPG in a way.
Yeah.
That there's a win-lose state here. And that's like the first thing I think, and particularly in horror, that you need to break yourself of. I mean, if you're any TTRPG, you need to break yourself of that right away because there's no winning and losing here. This isn't. I understand like a lot of TTRPGs are born out of wargaming where there really was a win-lose state, but like for the way that most modern TTRPGs work, that's just not the case. And it's not about doing the optimal thing. It's not about coming away with the most loot and the biggest, beefiest, dude from all your experience and everything. It's about, making something cool and that thing you're making that's cool is the story that you're all building together. And if that means that you do the suboptimal thing, that you do the stupid thing, that you do the thing that gets everyone hurt, it's fine. That's and if you can't deal with that, you definitely shouldn't be playing horror.
Yeah, and it makes me feel better because when I do stupid stuff on a daily basis, I'm like, guys, it's for story purposes. Leave Mitchell alone. The narrative.
Yeah, keep telling yourself.
Yeah, I'm serving the narrative. Let me do this.
I will say I'm actually guilty of that partly. Like I have a tendency as a player to want to not win. I know that's that, but to be cool. I like my escapism. I like my self-insert power fantasy.
Power fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, I'm super guilty of that. I watched entirely too much Xena Warrior Princess as a child, but I know that explains a lot. The musical episodes in particular. But that is, again, the question of communication in Session 0 and throughout the game. What are our collective expectations? Because it's fine to have a power fantasy game. It's fine to just vanquish evil. That's okay. But when you are playing a horror game where you eat feet, bitch, why?
It had to be feet too.
Oh yeah, that did happen.
Practically targeted
at
you.
That fucked me up so badly.
I should have got a feet cake.
That's the worst combination of words I've ever heard.
Because you hate cake, I hate feet.
Yeah.
We are fucked up here by either. But again, it's about managing expectations and establishing expectations in this case. And horror, you probably won't have as much fun, or you won't you will want to, if you want to run a game like Cult, then that needs to be communicated as well.
Yeah, and I thought Pope made a valid point that there's different styles of gameplay: gamist, narrativist, simulationist, and absolutely whatever works. I just honestly, the point I'm really trying to make about when it comes to like trying to win a game or something like that, I think that particularly really doesn't work in horror.
Yeah,
that for me, the person who wants to win the game and wants to be the best and do the right thing, like do the optimal move and stuff in D&D, it just annoys me, and I probably don't want to play with that person. But kind of more power to them. I think in horror, though, I think that's particularly a mismatch. I think that really especially doesn't work. Because it's the same... I feel like that person is probably the same person who's the one who's saying, I'm not afraid of anything and you can't scare me. In which case, why are you here? Why play this game then? I just don't think that gels well with the genre, because there is... If you're going to play horror, there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief. There's a little bit of suspension of good sense and good reason. There's a reason why when we're watching slasher movies, we're all shouting, "Don't open the door!" Like, you do sometimes do the dumb thing.
Really? You shout that when that happens?
Well, yes, I do, in fact. I mean, I do. I think the first slasher movie I ever watched was I was like maybe 10 and watching Halloween with my sister. I remember me and my sister sitting down and watching the first two Halloween movies, which I still love. I love the first two Halloween films. I love John Carpenter in general. Also The Thing. And yeah, there is that kind of, well, it's sort of what I was saying before. There's the dramatic irony. It's using dramatic irony to scare you. You know that Michael Myers is behind the door. But the idiot on screen doesn't know that. Even though there's probably a million hints, and they're still walking toward the door anyway. And all good sense and reason would tell them to turn around. It is using that dramatic irony to scare you. You know that they're walking into their death, and that's the terror.
Pope mentioned something that slam the big red button.
Always.
Yes.
Always.
And feet cake.
Always. I'm actually, and this is a new thing that started recently, so I want to get your input on that. I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed with that phrase being taken incredibly literally and unimaginatively lately by some gamers and games and players.
Slam the big red button? That
yeah. As in, yeah, you want to do the stupid thing when it's interesting. It's interesting. I've encountered players, and this is more my home game. This is not me subtweeting anyone on streams I've played with. But I've had that talk with some of my home game players recently. So now what they've been doing is just pure chaos, because it's the big red button. We're making things interesting by fucking everything up. Like, I like your energy, but you're missing the point by that much. I think you still want the decision whether you slam the big red button to matter. Or I do. I want it to matter. I want it to be a moment of, what do I do? Or what are the consequences? I want that psychological stuff here. That's what I'm here for. If I have a player who kind of goes, this is a tough situation, I guess, but I want to see what happens. I'm going to do a stupid thing anyway, and then doesn't bother to roleplay what in the world would actually be for a character like this in the given parameters of their reality, a pretty hard decision to make, because I'm going to slam the big red button and announces that in chat loudly and just... I'm like...
Yeah.
Well, I built up that conundrum for 3 episodes. Didn't even bother engaging with it as a conundrum, because of that fucking phrase, and everyone's been touting it, including myself. And
well, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
Mitch?
I mean, it should make a interesting story. Like a good like role playing game has people talking about it for years to come. And however situation you got there should come up with that, and instead of just like slamming every button where there's not really a story there, or people are just giggling the whole time as they're drinking. I don't know, like I'm just thinking about my apple cider I have right here.
Who's drinking? People aren't drinking.
We're all drinking. What? I think I win with the Angry Orchard.
In terms of percentage, are we going for an alcohol sponsor? Because Josh and Triple Wood is definitely something you should try to get the effect.
Well, here in New York, we have what's called Genesee Cream Ale, nicknamed Jenny Screamer because it makes you shit. But it is,
what?
Yeah.
That's horrific.
Yeah, I know.
This came from a tree.
This came from a river that I wouldn't swim in.
But yeah,
it's a thing.
Colin, we need to talk.
Yeah, I'm not well.
Yeah, just the fact that you're drinking cream ale.
Yeah.
What's cream ale anyway?
It's
creamy? Is it? Am I being an idiot here?
It has a slightly creamy texture, but I don't know.
Is there milk in it?
No.
Cream?
No. I think it's just because the mouthfeel. It's kind of has like
the creamy mouthfeel. Yes. Yes. Going back to those senses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we're really just.
Oh, Mitch, make the noise, Mitch.
The weird mouth smacky noise he does.
Which one? Oh.
Yeah.
God, the mouth sounds. Always the mouth sounds.
Yeah, I do want to do an ASMR like reading of Cult with mouth sounds. I think that would be great.
Hey, well, to the topic at hand, do you I mean, I think Mitch, you utilize that strongly, that kind of like Foley work of doing basically your own sound effects for for games.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to do, and there's a real gentle art to it, and it can end up sounding and appearing really stupid if you do it wrong. What do you? But I know that you do it because you've done it to me. So like, what kind of stuff do you like to do to really bring out the kind of sensory aspect?
So when I took an improv class, they said everything we're going to be doing is stupid. So laugh it off right now because it's going to feel and look really stupid. But in the end, like it creates some cool stuff. So whenever I just try to think of what would be enticing, like smacking of lips and clapping with your teeth. Is one of my favorites, and like I think the more you can bring in various aspects of your body into storytelling, whether it's your lips or your hands. I usually like to stand up when I'm running games at a convention, because it's just kind of bringing every aspect of yourself into weaving the story. Go for it. I think the more you can do it, and it's going to look stupid. So just get over it, because we're playing Magic Pretend Times, which is silly.
It's what I do, and I come back to ghost tour guiding because I think I miss it. I don't know if you noticed.
I think you miss it
on some level, yeah.
Somewhat. What I used to do, because I train other ghost tour guides as well and history guides. For one of the first sessions I always plan is we go into the vaults, because we do the Southbridge vaults in Edinburgh, haunted 18th century, blah blah blah. One of the first sessions we do is when we barely know each other, when everyone's still trying to make a good impression on the trainer, when everyone's still kind of like trying to be the cool gothy ghost tour guide. We stay in the vaults for half an hour in the morning and we do screams and sounds, and it's embarrassing and it's horrifying and they hate it, but they will be better guides for it afterwards because it fucking smashes that inhibition and that level of that I don't want to sound stupid, I want to be cool. I got this job because I want to be a cool ghost tour guide. Yes, and what you don't understand is that to be that cool ghost tour guide, you have to not be afraid of being embarrassed or being silly. And I know that because I was that person. I didn't want to do ghost tours when I came to Scotland because I was a history guide in Austria before, monastery, history, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. This is silly. Ghosts. I don't believe in ghosts. Huh. But when you realize the power and the... Oh, wait, this shows entirely too much of my psyche.
Keep going.
But when
The
you
power, you
realize
say.
that, yeah, is that enticing to you, dear? But when you realize that there's a lot more actually to be gained and to be created and achieved with a silly ghost tour than with an actual history tour where people tune out after 20 minutes, you realize that, yeah, this is an opportunity I'm having. I can reach more people on a ghost tour by weaving in actual history, by weaving in actual things, because they're so entertained they're actually listening for an hour or two. Then I can do a history tour where people are often just dragged along by a partner or feel like they have to do it because they have to do it. And to be that entertaining, again, requires the breaking of the silly.
Do you remember this came up, Lydia, about, Christ, probably 5-6 months ago? You and I were doing, we were helping people film scenes to audition for EncounterRoleplay. And the phrase that kept coming up, we were doing these little short scenes for people, you know, like 4 or 5 people at a time, and we'd go back and watch them. And we noticed that the phrase that kept coming up when we were complimenting people's role play, the phrase that kept coming up was, he, she, they're not afraid of looking stupid.
Yeah. And
it makes you a better GM, it makes you a better role player. You have, like, if you can do your best to swallow the fear of looking like an idiot on some level. Because, Mitch, I loved what you said. Like, it's all fun and games silliness. Like, we're all just out here. I mean, there's a reason why I put in my Twitter bio, like, I roll dice and pretend to be other people. Yeah. Because really, that's what I'm doing. I'm a grown man who's out here rolling dice and pretending to be other people. It's all silly.
There is no narrative where you say that in a public crowd where they're not laughing at you. Like, right. what we do on a day-to-day basis, like, no matter how cool we think we are,
we're
Mitch,
ridiculous.
That's the funny part as well, because now in the pandemic, when people ask me what do you do when I meet new, I've met so many neighbors recently. What do you do? Well, I used to be a tour guide. Oh, there's no tourists here. What do you do now? Have you got Twitch?
Yeah, it's like I
roll dice in costumes, pretending to.
I hang out with a guy with fake horns on his head every Monday.
Yeah, I listen to smacking sounds in a guy who drinks cream ale.
He's the worst.
Yeah. When I applied for this like row home here in Baltimore, and like my wife and my housemate applied to, and we had to put our jobs down, and they said they'd call us about our jobs, and they all got calls, and I did it. And I was like, what about I play Magic for 10 times on the internet doesn't suggest I deserve a call about.
Don't you want to discuss this?
Yeah, like, call me, please. I'm bored. I don't got anything to do.
Ever calls.
Yeah.
Hey, Mitch, can I have one of those cool fake titles everyone in the TTRPG scene is having? Like, production manager and
Heck yeah. Like,
I want one of those, because I see so much of that in Twitter promos of every low-level streamer out there.
Yeah.
Like, I want one. This is ridiculous, but I want one.
Yeah, definitely, like, make up your own stuff. I liked when I was talking to Keisha Howard from Sugar Gamers, and they were talking about like creative titles and stuff like that. And she was like, instead of trying to conform to what other people are saying about what your title should be, make up your own goddamn title.
Y'all are on my channel right now, so what do you want? I'm passing out titles.
Queen of Everything available?
Yes. Yeah.
I would dentist.
No, that's the one you can't have. That's the one you're not allowed to have.
Profession.
I think I do a good job with teeth. Okay, if you just let me, you're not that far. So
Mitch, I saw a thing the other day and I thought of you. People carved almonds, large almonds, into teeth and then pretended to pull it out of their mouths. You need to get behind that for your next call game.
I mean, it's like my where's my friend? Oh, there he is.
Which one? I'm terrified already.
That one.
What is that? Oh,
little shrunky head.
Yeah, he's got like these amazing teeth. He actually comes from New York.
Oh.
Tooth manager.
Yeah.
Tooth manager. I love it.
Yeah, Pope's calling you tooth manager. So you're.
There we go.
For this channel, yes, you're Colinomicon. You're the Colinomicon tooth manager.
I will manage everyone's teeth as best I can. I promise. This is my solemn vow.
Professional tooth enthusiast. I would say you're pretty enthused by teeth. Yeah.
It just reminds me of that Cyanide and Happiness short where they're at the dentist and there's that sucking noise where they suck out like the saliva from your mouth, and he follows the tube and it's like this guy underneath the counter like going
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's horrific.
and it's like employee of the month.
That's such a good like body horror like image though. Like, I
Isn't
really
it?
love
Like-
that a lot.
So if you're going to a dentist, check the cabinets.
Look
Just-
under the counters.
Yes, just to be sure you
I'm
don't
not
have.
going to, because I'm not going to be that person shaming the poor man underneath
He's
the
a worker too.
counter or in the
Yes.
he's working hard. Pretty sure not everyone flosses and or brushes their teeth before they go to the dentist, unless of course that's a special flavor that is added and he actually
Yeah.
really likes that. But if not, that's a hard job he's doing.
Yeah, and honestly, the union, we appreciate you saying that. We are workers too. We are there getting whatever in your mouth and ingesting it so that it's clean for you and for everyone else.
What's his job title? Is this a professional sucker?
Yeah, I think he might be a yeah. And what is the mouth feel of mouth detritus being sucked through a tube? You guys didn't know that you were actually gonna witness some horror on the
Yeah, we
stream
want
tonight.
we want answers in chat, please. What is the mouth feel of a professional tooth sucker? Is a sentence I just said.
Lydia, do we have any further questions from chat?
Unfortunately not, else I would have stopped the shit show 10 minutes ago.
I do have one actually that was that Anna gave me earlier, and it's a pretty simple one, but I'm just kind of curious. And it's for Mitch.
Oh, there was one from Kat. Thank
Oh.
you, Kat, for saving our butts. But keep going with Anna. I'll.
Oh, it's just a
remember.
real simple one. Mitch, what is your favorite horror RPG? And you're not allowed to say cult.
I was about to say. I was about to like. I was expecting Mitch. What's your fucking problem?
Mitch, what the fuck is wrong with you?
As a professional sucker, there is no problem. We're just cleaning teeth on a day-to-day basis.
Day in, day out. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard knock life. But anyway, what's your favorite RPG that's not made by the company that you work for?
That's always a tough question.
I won't tell them, I promise.
I know, right? And when people ask me generally, like, what's your favorite TTRPGs? And my mind immediately goes to the companies that I represent, and I'm like,
It's like, is that right?
yeah.
Specifically horror. I mean, specifically horror TTRPG. What really gets you?
Man.
Or how about you? Look, I'll make this easier. Yeah, I don't know. I'll rephrase it so that you don't have to pick favorites among RPGs. But when you think back on your favorite session you've ever played of a game, like what?
So the Genesis is not typically a horror game. Like, it's not set as a horror game, but I've had some of the most horrific experiences in that game. Well, other people have while I'm running it. And it's just based.
Isn't that every game you run?
Yeah.
Oh, also,
Special
Pope
for
says
worse.
it's executive suction director.
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm not
Well,
up to that. Yeah, I'm really an intern
That's
right
something
now.
to shoot for. Yeah, that's down there.
Yeah, that's my boss's
5-year plan.
boss.
5-year plan.
Yeah.
I was about to say that should be an official title in Encounter Roleplay, but with the ERP abbreviation, people would probably turn that particular job title into something else.
It wouldn't be a stretch. But yeah, what game is this, Mitch?
Let's see if I can do the finger right. The Genesis. There we go.
Crazy.
Is that the one over your shoulder right there?
Yeah. The Genesis, the role-playing game, is a post-apocalyptic game. And one of my favorite aspects of it is there's these abominations called psychonauts. And one of my favorites, I think, is called the psychokinesis. And they're these like giant, like humanoid creatures with like these welts and boils and little bugs creeping out of these little things. And they sit on these thrones. Like these ant hill farms, and humans come up and drink of this pus that's leaking out from these boils of their bodies. And when they do that every day, they become enslaved by this creature and continue to go living their lives underneath the sway of this mind fucker of a creature. And every day they go up and they drink out from the boils of this bloated carcass of a creature.
To quote Tom,
I love it.
fuck.
Yeah. So, and there's some horrific pictures in the Genesis that kind of show off these monsters, and they're horrific and terrifying.
I love that sort of stuff, though. The sort of when you have any film medium where there's the gleeful, happy family situation doing horrible things. Like basically anything that is the Black Hole Sun video, I'm here for it.
That video. Wow. Yeah, I once ran a Genesis game where they went under this like mountain area and they encountered this group of people who were naked and they didn't have use of their legs, so they just kind of crawled on the floor, and they were humans for the most part. But just if you can imagine like a group of individuals who can't see crawling with their naked bodies over you, trying desperately to figure out what you look like. And I got very specific with the things that were rubbing against people. They were just like, no, we're not doing it. We're going else to another town. And I was like, that's fair.
Colt, you did a great job with the mud orgy pit scene. That
I keep thinking of party wipe games. Just
Rendis is just...
See, I wanted more of that. But
Rendis just went swan diving into a pile of muddy naked bodies,
living their best life.
That was my proudest moment, because that whole thing was like, I was like, Mitch, I found this thing in the book that's like this Japanese dream queen, and I'm like, we need to do this. Like, please let me do this. Like,
yeah,
I want her to be my patron.
When I first was thinking about the I Am Pilgrim campaign and I saw that picture, I was like, I really hope someone does something with this. And when you mentioned it, I was like, oh yes.
Now, we did have another question in chat,
Sure.
which
we got a little time.
Is something we already touched upon a little bit. How important is music and generally auditory input when running a horror game for you?
Yes. So for me, indispensable would be my honest answer to that. I mean, I don't know if this is actually true. This may be apocryphal, but you may have heard this before, that the original, when John Carpenter saw the original cut of Halloween, it didn't have a soundtrack. And it didn't work. It just, it didn't, and he didn't, they were making that movie on like a shoestring budget, and they didn't even pay someone to make a soundtrack. They didn't have a score. So John Carpenter himself wrote the famous, incredibly simple to play piano thing from Halloween, did that himself, and that makes the movie. That absolutely makes the movie, because it is that constant driving tension of just very simple piano music in the background that totally matches the tone of the movie. Because Michael Myers is what I love about Michael Myers as a villain is he's a walking villain. He never chases you, he just walks, and he'll get to you eventually on his own time. And that just very simple piano lick in the background absolutely made the horror. It brought that out. So when I play Monster of the Week in particular, which is my sort of go-to, it's not designed. Monster of the Week is not necessarily designed to be a horror game, but you can play it that way. When I play Monster of the Week, if I don't have music, I feel naked. Like I don't know what it puts. I will say that music, for one thing, puts a lot of it takes a lot of tension off of your shoulders as the GM to create atmosphere. You don't have to keep filling dead air with more narration and with trying to make an environment. The music can do that for you. It not entirely for you. Can't lean on it completely, but it will take a lot of burden off of you to create an atmosphere. And then Lydia, I did this with you, and I've done this with I've done this with you twice now in two different games you've been in.
Twice.
Yeah. One powerful thing about music is when you take it away.
Silence is golden.
Effective use of silence, when all of a sudden you just kill it and then leave the party wondering like, what's going on? Why is that happening?
I was about to say in general, something I've noticed with stream games in particular, there is such a ridiculous need to fill any form of silence. I hate it. I get it. It's partly because of delays with various online mediums like Zoom, like VMix. But that is one of the reasons Song of the Deep, Lessons in Deep Magic was so very strong, because we had no problem allowing the silence to happen.
Yeah.
Which
sit with it.
A, made things easier in between, when like realizing when a character was done speaking or not, and B, sometimes involuntarily sort of created important moments when people had time to reflect, and when people had time to oh, and that is sometimes taken away by the incessant need to always be speaking, to always be entertaining, to always be loud. At the same time, to come back to the question, yes, I do absolutely appreciate music, and yes, auditory stimulation and effects. I mean, as pretty much everyone in this chat will know, Colin and I have been going a little bit crazy
A little
ham on voice mod and auditory effects in general. We've been using them. I've been trying not to overuse them, but we've been using them, and I think to good effect. I think those things can be absolutely complementing, enhancing a campaign, and creatures that need to be a little bit otherworldly, just like snap camera filters can add that extra bit of production value.
Are you about to put the
By
eyes
no
on? You have to
means
warn me
does
if you're
that
about to put the
mean
eyes on.
you can't. Sorry, I didn't.
Are you about to
What?
put the eyes on? You have to warn me if you're
No,
about to
I
put the eyes
won't.
on.
I was considering it actually, but
No, you too
I
well.
don't remember the button, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, it doesn't mean that if you don't have it, your campaign's not good. Please don't ever let fancy tools and fancy effects take away. I'm seeing that, Mitch. Do you have a daisy on?
You. Oh.
You're adorable.
Bless you, child.
It's a cute little
It's
daisy.
so cute.
So sweet. Anyway, but don't ever think those effects make a campaign. Don't ever think that shit like that takes away basic knowledge and skills and understanding of your players and your campaign. It would.
Yeah.
Don't be Michael Bay, is what I'm saying. But it can be such a beautiful spice added to your campaign.
It's seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really enjoying those options, which kind of ties into one of the next questions. But before we go to the question of managing games online, I think Mitch still needs to answer.
Yeah, Mitch, what do you think on music?
For me, music, I work on music when I run games live, because I've tried with streams, but there's so many rules involving that it's just like it becomes frustrating after a point in time. But when I can play any song I want, I spend more time on music than I do on campaign structure or anything else. Because for me, as a musician and stuff like that, music has a very potent effect on me. I will straight up cry if I hear certain songs in the memories that they.
Yeah,
I'm not telling my weaknesses. Like, what is this?
Tell us, Mitch. You know you want to.
Slumdog Millionaire, the main theme for that, like, oh my gosh, every
choice.
time I hear that, I get teary-eyed. On the nature of darkness or light, one of those two also really does me. But like, music for me makes me a better GM, and I definitely appreciate what it does to the players. So for me, music is like 60% of my GMing.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because what I do on Encounter, and some people don't know, is when I'm teching games that I'm not in, I'm often also doing the music for them. And especially last season, or was it? Yes, last season, I have been privileged to really figure out and play with that and realize just how potent music can be. There was one campaign in particular where I had picked a song as the sort of... I always like picking a song as a main theme for the introduction and the beginning of a game, just to sort of ease people into it, and then pick tracks that are appropriate for tense music, tense moments, emotional moments, fights. But the main theme, the sort of neutral theme, happened to be a little bit too sad, a little bit too just downbeat, which created a situation where the baseline of that campaign was sad and low energy. And I'm like, something's off. They're not getting... Something's off. So I changed the track to something else, and suddenly everything picked up. I'm like, fuck me, I had no idea just how powerful that can be.
Yeah.
And I'm still to this day sure that the people playing it didn't actually realize.
Yeah.
No, it's
I mean, yesterday, when you changed the music during the fight to this driving bass, and everyone's like, it's time to throw down, motherfucker. And everyone was getting hyped and everything. And I was like, just the song did that. It was amazing. It was perfect timing.
Yeah,
you were...
I have a track. I have a track that my D&D parties it's been a little while since I DM'd them, but I had a Sunday weekly D&D party that I had one track that they dreaded because they knew whenever that music came on, I was about to make something terrible happen. And it's so much credit out there. I'll just shout out the guy because he's given me so much great music. Kevin McLeod. A lot of his music is available on Roll20 for free. The track is called Impending Boom. Yeah. It's called Impending Boom, and it reminds me very much of the music that plays in that episode of Game of Thrones when the church blows up. That very just subtle string music that's just sort of pizzicato violins and stuff like that in the background. That is just, it's leading to something about to go horribly wrong. Yeah. And I love the power of that. I would live for every time I put that track on and I could watch everyone's eyes widen and
the level of conditioning you can do with music is actually quite ridiculous. Because again, with Song of the Deep, we use the same as a baseline, and I like to do with all the campaigns I take. I like to have a baseline track because it gets people in the mood, it gets people in character much faster than anything else. And I felt that because when we had the little break in Song of the Deep, we did have a session 0 in between, but we didn't listen to music during that one. And even though it was just 2 weeks, it was just 1 week of a break when we were waiting for everyone to come on, and I put on that intro music again. Everyone's like, "Oh, I missed this. Oh, I missed this. This is good." And I'm like,
I love our theme song.
Yeah, I
it
do.
Totally gets me in character.
And of course, our unofficial theme song that we cannot play on stream because copyright.
We can tell you what it is, though.
Yeah.
Say it.
It's
You go.
I think a lot of people in chat already know.
Yeah. Essentially, on session 0, which was hilarious and really set the path for Song of the Deep, Noir, the Noir Enigma, he has a Stream Deck sort of button that
soundboard.
does the saxophone part of Careless Whisper. And when we talked about, hey, because I was like, okay, what about relationships? Is that something you want from the campaign? And immediately everyone was like, yes. I'm like, you fucking thirsty bitches, but okay.
TTRPG players are thirsty.
So thirsty.
Especially during... Oh, I'm aware.
More than most.
Especially during the pandemic, the whole relationship thing has become such a big deal. But Noir played the Careless Whisper saxophone track, and then when we had the end of session 0, and we were all maybe a little bit drunk, I played it again, but in the 10-hour loop track.
That went on
everyone
for
was dancing and everyone had a good time. So now Careless Whisper has become our there's a gif of Colin doing that. Everyone kind of associates the Careless Whisper with the debrief and the relax part of Song of the Deep.
I feel like my job this year is going to figure out a way to license this song so that we can
I
Just
mean,
have it.
No, I played it during the premiere, not realizing how short the trailer was.
We
There was
almost
a
got
brief moment of panic when I came back. I'm like, cut it. We're fucking back in 0.2 seconds. And he's like, oh shit, sorry.
that's why if everyone goes back and watches the VOD of the first episode of Song of the Deep, that we're all immediately breaking as soon as the episode starts because we're all laughing hysterically.
That is why I started the episode with the words, I will murder you.
A good way to start.
Yeah.
But honestly, so going back to music, if you ever want to figure out what type of players you have, play Tiny Tim's any song and just see everyone's reactions. The person who's smiling, that's the person who you're going to use to kill everyone else.
What's Tiny Tim?
Yeah, tiptoe through the tulips. Tiptoe through the tulips.
We probably also copyright, but
oh, if you watch it, it is creepy as hell, and it's not meant to be. But just play it and watch everyone's reactions. You're gonna figure out who probably has someone in the basement. Just go on from there.
A bad comment to make towards me, but
well, it is now after 10, so we should get going soon. But if there's any final questions anyone has, anything that we had, Lydia, we didn't get to.
not that I saw, but I was busy with drinking and Careless Whisper. And,
we did have that question up above. Let's see. Mr. El Bulbo, excuse me if I have that wrong. Managing the atmosphere online compared to in-person games.
Yes. Sorry. I did not get back to that.
So I'll say on that, it's easier online, in my opinion. That's one major thing. I just find it easier
because you
because
use your fancy tools.
Because you have more tools at your disposal. Yeah, I mean, there's more. There's just more to work with to manage the atmosphere. You can do. There's music. You know, you can always have music. I play music even at home games. I literally actually think I have it right here nearby. I don't know where I put it, but I have a little Bluetooth speaker that I just bring with me and hook my phone up and put it right on the table, so I can have music controlled that way. Because I just love having music in my games. It makes me a better GM. But you know, I can't sit there and do voice mod and snapcam filters and all that fun shit. Or one thing I like to do in a lot of my online home games, I haven't done it on stream, but I like to do green screen and I'll project images behind me. If I'm setting the atmosphere of where you guys are, I'll just say, it looks a lot like this, you know, and I'll do that kind of thing. And there's just more at your disposal. There is something lost, though. It's not all gain with online. There is something lost because there.
I will.
Just final point on that. There is something very, very powerful. And I find this works particularly well with players I know and trust and who trust me, where there's something extremely powerful about me sitting across the table from you, looking you straight in the eye, and doing the kind of things that Lydia, that you'd mentioned before about, like, you know, being the devil on your shoulder and tempting you and trying to get you to do something terrible, or or narrating something, you know, awful that's happening to you. And it's very powerful when I can sit across from you and force you to make eye contact with me while I do this. Like, that's intense. It's great. And you can somewhat simulate it online, but I just feel like online there's much more of the ability to blink and to look away, and to even get up and walk off. I mean, you can't follow me if I go out the door. In person, it just feels there's that immediacy. It kind of reminds me of, like, why live theater is to me, like, the most, like, pure art form, because it's so immediate, it's so raw, it's all happening right in front of you, and it's very powerful. So I think that is a boon to the atmosphere of an in-person game. But I think, honestly, on the whole, like, online, I love my tools. I love my tricks, and I love being able to build atmosphere that way, and I think it is easier. What do you think,
like
Mitch?
the tools.
Oh, sorry.
sorry,
Go ahead,
Mitch.
Lydia. Go ahead,
No.
Lydia, please.
No. Go for our flower crown princess.
I definitely miss cultivating an atmosphere live, being able to turn off the lights, giving people candles, locking the door, little things you can do to kind of cultivate that creepiness. I really miss that, but I also appreciate the fact that I think it's easier to kind of do some scenes from a distance via the like a Zoom or streaming and stuff like that. And then being able, like, I really loved in Cult when I was able to put all those videos on there and just like sit back and it'd be a lot harder to do because then it'd be on a laptop and doesn't have the same oomph as it does. Yeah.
Lydia?
There's pros and cons to everything, as you just said. I do miss in-person games because while it is so much harder to really constantly get everyone's attention, when of course everyone's staring at the screen, they can't really get away from the table. You have their attention. You have more crosstalk, you have more little conversations going on while you focus on one particular scene. When it's in person, you don't have your tools. Again, except for music, I always play that. But that moment when everyone goes quiet, that is so much more impactful in person.
Oh yeah.
That moment when you know you have them all right now.
In the palm of your hands.
Yeah. That, I miss that. I obviously, you can do it through Zoom. I have done it through Zoom, and we all have, but it's not quite as rewarding when it's remote because you don't feel the temperature in the room dropping. You don't feel the atmosphere in the room, and that is different. Obviously, we still know when players are hooked, and we still know when we did a good job, but I kind of miss that in-person thing because, well, I think honestly because we're human beings and we're wired to be social beings and we're wired to thrive off that sort of thing.
Especially in horror, being able to be like, go up behind someone and be like, you got hands on you now.
No, that's just you.
That's all you, bud.
But I mean, I think the hardest part going back to in-game is streaming has spoiled me with the amount of talent that I get to play with.
Yes.
Like Colin and Lydia, and I'm like, I guess I could find where you live and bring you here and play a game, but like it's tough, you know. That's like a whole week gone. And then when I bring in people here, if you're watching this, I love you guys so much. But compared to just a streaming group, like being able to just like have all these amazing people to play with has been really cool.
Yeah,
that is so true. Like I've parallel to the stream games I've been doing, I kept running my guards home game, but I had to have a long break because we couldn't find the regular thing, scheduling issues. We couldn't find a date. And then after 2 or 3 months, we finally had the guards game again, and I was looking forward to it, but it was weird. It was off because people constantly got up to get a drink. People were constantly chatting, and like, you're here to play a game. Get like fucking focus. But hold on, no. This is friends getting together. That is some of their some of them, not all of them, but some of the people in your home game don't really come for the game. They come for the social interaction, the friend thing. Some of them do come for the game, but they're not here for the role playing. When it comes to stream games, we're all here for the role playing. So realizing that this is a whole different sort of set of expectations you're working with, and that you kind of have to, fucking check yourself. You're not directing a fantastical journey through fantasy Scotland. You have to realize that what your players want is just relaxing, fun, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, I'm the bitch here. I'm taking a step back. And
I'm the asshole moment. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're like,
yeah.
guys, I want to role
Hate it.
play. Someone's dying. Stop eating the
You are
avocado.
not in character.
Yeah.
Put down that smart pop. Smart pop is for role players.
Yeah. How many licks does it take? Too much. This whole scene.
Well, that's a note.
But
You know the lollipop thing.
Yep.
no, I don't. I'm entirely too European for it. No, I
Oh.
That's a beat.
But that was an experience, or a realization, I should say, to really see how different expectation and commitment levels are between real life games and stream games. Of course, that's not a blanket statement. You can still have a super committed real life party. You can still have people on stream games that are like just here for the lulz. But in this particular case, it was very much like, and there are, amongst this guards game, there are dungeon crawlers, there are people who are not that familiar with RPGs and don't actually care as much, and then there's the one super intense role player. So that mix up, that constellation is also very different. And
so close to my old D&D party. That's always a tough one. We have the one intense role player. That person is very isolated, and it's very hard as a GM. It's a challenge as a GM to service everyone's needs in that.
Yeah.
And get
we are service tops at the end. That's really what it boils down to. But weirdly enough, we decided to try and service top like 5 people at the same time, which is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's basically that dentist thing, you know? We are the people underneath the cupboard, but instead of 1 tube to 1 person, we have 5 tubes.
Mitch, please stop that metaphor right the fuck away.
All right.
That I'm going to give that. Someone clip that, please. Anna, help me. I need to give that. Fuck.
This is gonna be like the bilge pump gif from Zweihander 2. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, but worse.
Oh, the bilge pump. Okay, well, at the outset of this show, which, by the way, chat, I'm so sorry, I forgot to ask you guys, we never came up with a name for this show. So part of what I was going to do tonight was hear yours, because I know that your suggestions were all, I'm sure, going to be very helpful and very serious, and things that we should really consider. And I forgot to ask. But by all means, I'm going to leave the stream up for a wee, so you can throw stuff in. Oh, Mitch, you have a... Yeah?
Yeah. The colonoscopy. Because it's an examination of certain things in the industry. Like, I think it works.
You're out of my will.
Also, occasionally you are full of shit. Anyway.
Occasionally. I do it for a living.
We have a thing to give away if you...
we do.
Also,
we do. And let's see.
Thanks to Mr. E. Balbo in chat. El Balbo, sorry.
Balbo, yes.
Really? You're going sort of Spanish?
Oh,
being as Scottish as you are?
Yep. And so, to everyone who retweeted and thereby entered, thank you so much. And...
I didn't retweet.
I did. I'm in this running.
Some people may have do in chat.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm totally not gonna let you, of all people, win a copy of a cult PDF.
Some bullcrap.
Yeah, totally.
But tell you who did. Our own Pope.
Pope,
my man, I will be, I'm friends with you on Discord, so I will send you the code. You have won yourself a free PDF of Cult Divinity Lost. It is an absolutely gorgeous book. It's one that you really, I mean, I shouldn't be saying this after having just, gifted you a PDF of it, but it's one that really does feel good to hold in your hands because the physical book of it is just so fucking beautiful, and it has Easter eggs built into it that you can only get if you actually have the physical medium. Like it has writing across the pages that you can only see if you actually have it. But it is an absolutely gorgeous book.
In some light, you can actually see me on some of the pages, kind of waving at you.
You can also find Mitch under your
you'll
bed
have to have done
most
a lot
nights.
of mushrooms for that.
Yeah. I'm just like, hi, I'm Mitch. Welcome to Cult.
I knew that Mitch was going to be my favorite horror GM ever, because Mitch was kind of my first horror GM, really. But I knew that this was going to work out when I...
Forget your fast.
But when I joked that I messaged Mitch, I was like, man, you're creeping me out. I practically check under my bed for you every night. And you're like, yeah, and you never wave back.
Which I'm still, like, sad about, but yeah.
Pope, I will send you that code, my man. Congratulations. Enjoy. It is such a great game. I absolutely adore Cult.
We had Pope actually also suggest a name for the thing, the Post-Mortem.
The Post-Mortem?
I like that, because we're killing it.
Well, now that we've all done that, I think...
That's the whitest
yeah.
I've ever
Yeah.
Can't get any more horrific than what we just saw, folks, so...
Ooh, I think the whip and the cream. Lydia brings the whip. Colin, you bring the cream.
No.
the cream ale. Like, he's drinking it the whole time. And Lydia talked about whipping, and I think it's perfect, you know?
Oh,
Have
God.
you met the people that are in this chat?
I know.
Are they going to take it?
Me?
Creamy and frothy mouthfeels. Extra frothy.
The dentists.
The dentists. Well, please, by all means, you get at us on Discord and send us your suggestions for a name. But I'm gonna let Mitch go first here before we sign off, and then. So, Mitch, I think everyone knows who you are, but hey, who are you? Where can we find you? What you doing these days?
Yeah, I am known as Mitch the Soul Hunter, marketing director for Helmcast, which produces Cult among troubleshooters, which is so far from Cult. It's silly. As well as Neotech and a few other games. Not only that, right now, just kind of plugging some other stuff. We have the Under Nebula Skies, which is Black Void Games, which if you're interested in kind of Eldritch horror, but you also want some Babylonian fantasy, it's a really cool game with amazing art. So check that out. It's on Kickstarter right now. It's a good buy-in to try to grab the core rulebook as well. Rest in Peace is just finished up as well from Imagining Games. Hilarious with middle finger cards. So it is hilarious. The guy who did the voiceover, I forget his name, but there you go. Jay. Whew, I can never thank him enough for what he did for that intro video. And Lydia, thank you for sending him.
Jay is
over.
hilarious and is also, do follow him if you are interested in voiceovers yourself. He's standing up for the voice acting, I would say union, but the union in the UK is shit. So yeah, he is a stand-up guy. He does his own streams as well. Jay Britton, Voice of Britain, he was on EncounterRoleplay a couple of times as well. He might be back because I'm working on that. And yeah, he was in Divinity 2. He's doing video games and other things. He is great, and you should watch him.
Yes, do it and do it now. Other than that, you can find me on Encounter Roleplay, running Axon Punk with Lydia DJing it. And then right afterwards, I am playing Lexicultum, which is a late night 18th century French horror game. And I get to play a Catholic priest. And yeah, just check me out everywhere that there's a penny and there's a tail involved.
That's your catchphrase?
I'm trying it out. Is that...
We'll workshop that.
Yeah.
All right, Mitch. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here as always. Nice to see you. We're going to go back to me and Lydia for just a hot second and then say goodnight. But
hi, everyone.
Mitch, whatever you do, don't leave the call and fuck up my
it's
my
exactly
captures.
what I'm doing.
Hang there for a hot second, but we're going to head back to the other screen. But good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, wasn't that a delight?
It was something.
It was a thing.
Certainly something. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mitch is
thing.
currently dancing.
He is currently jimmying.
Yeah.
I see jiggling titties and I'm
into it.
Disturbed and compromised.
What have we learned?
so many things about myself first and foremost. Never let chat name anything.
Yes.
Is what I've learned. Be grateful for the moments Anna's not in chat to clip your lowest points.
Like, I mean, it's gonna happen eventually. Don't worry. I mean, you'll get your gift. Don't worry.
Well, only if you get yours. And
Okay.
I would mime the thing that you did.
But then there'll be yeah.
But then they'll yeah.
I was kind of hoping, but yeah.
Oh. I really enjoyed this. To be perfectly honest, it's nice to have a GM chat show that isn't specifically an advice show, but just GMs venting and screaming at each other for 2 hours. Which I don't entirely know if it's helpful, but it's certainly helpful for my fragile psyche. And the particular horror theme, Mitch is going through Snapchat filters. Oh my god. The particular horror theme, because it is not something I'm actively going for, I feel like an imposter, and I feel super sus.
Imposter syndrome? Never.
Call out. Anyway, so it's nice to get the input of where GMs that are actively going for it are coming from, and realizing those sort of common denominators. And that in the end, it always boils down to 2-3 things anyway, which is communication, which is knowing your players, which is not afraid of being silly and embarrassing yourself. That seems to be the sort of trifecta of GMing in my experience. And
horror or otherwise, pretty much, it boils down to really those 3 things. And I think the only new thing you need to add to the sauce for horror is, come on, sauce, really? You're gonna react to that.
Listen, after Mitch's cream comment, I guarantee
that was closer. Come on now. But the only thing you need to add to the recipe, if you want to make this as vanilla as possible, is that it's just. I really think it just comes down to just know what scares you. It's like the same advice they give comedians. When you're starting out in comedy, it's what makes you laugh. What do you find funny? Well, go do that. What scares you? Yeah. That's your starting point. Find what gets your blood up. Find what scares you, and then run with it. And then it probably scares other people too. And as long as you can do that, and then follow the kind of 3 prime directives, you can probably make an effective horror game.
Don't harm humans.
Don't harm humans.
Wait, that's Asimov's law.
Oh, I see what you did there. But no, the ones you just listed prior to. Yes, those 3.
Yeah. Yes, and I think keeping that sort of exchange open that we did here with other... Sorry, Mitch is doing a striptease now, and I will minimize that window. Okay.
What?
So having that exchange with other GMs and having that exchange with you guys in chat as well, because there's so many fantastic GMs in chat as well. It is so valuable. It is so important to keep learning, to keep looking at what other people do, to learn from them, whether it's learning what you want to do or learning what you never want to do is another thing, but having people you can trust, which is what I am conflating with the people in chat here, because we do know most of you, realizing that you're not a lonely god on Mount Olympus of GMing that writes the story and has the lives of mortals in their hands, but having that exchange, whether it's in-game or outside of game, is the single most important resource you can have.
Yep.
For specific story elements and for just how to be a decent person in the TTRPG community.
Talk, socialize, bounce ideas off each other, and then by all means, when you come across a GM that does something right, steal. It's okay to steal. We don't steal my. If I'd be, it's the highest form of flattery. Like, I'm not gonna be mad if I do something you think is good. Steal it from me. I mean, if I steal from Lydia too, I steal from Mitch. It's like it's okay. Don't reinvent the wheel. If someone has found a way to make something work that works, shamelessly steal it. Credit them if you're nice, but it's okay. We all learn from each other, and that's fine.
Please don't recommend arson. Every one of my GM chat shows kind of eventually ends up in arson. So
yeah, well, we'll have to have a strict no arson policy here, I guess, cool. Just to combat, since this is such a recurring issue for you. We'll probably have to really take a firm stance on that.
That would be.
Yeah.
Because we're on fire. No, that's just as bad.
You were about to do. You did the thing again too. You even did.
I know.
Well, that's a place to cut it. My rule is end on a beat, and that's a beat, I guess.
Yeah, beating a dead horse.
Well, Lydia, what are you doing this coming week? Where can we see you streaming?
Yes. Hi. Next coming week. Oh God, I am probably going to scream at Mitch some more. I am going to be on Monday. I'm going to be, of course, again in Song of the Deep, which you should watch because it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Song of the Deep is a D&D 5 e-campaign with... Where are you? No, here? That? Yeah. That.
Other way on stream, but yeah. There you go.
Cool. Yeah, that guy. So that guy, Colin, is Bastian, our bard, and it's a D&D 5 e-campaign with him, with Sammy Seaworth, with Vinyar Enigma, with Draku, and with, eventually, the fucking gunhammer the internet has been pestering me about.
She acts like she's annoyed.
She does. Don't break my facade. It's a setting at the moment we're exploring called Snowhaven, where we're in the frozen tundra all around Snowhaven, Arctic lights, Arctic creatures, Arctic peoples as well, from Yeti to Arctic merfolk to fox people, bear people. That's what we're going to do this season. It is on EncounterRoleplay, of course, every week for the next 7-ish weeks, at 8 p.m. EST. And you should watch it because it's good, but you should watch all the EncounterRoleplay shows because they're good, and we're pretty much involved in a lot of them, whether it's in front of or behind the scenes. Zweihander is going to start up the week after, and right now I think that's pretty much it. Oh yes, 6th of November, I'm going to be on a charity event for Extra Life on Valdrianth's channel, Valdrianth. It's an Animorphs game. Morphs in the dark, so blades in the dark, but slightly changed, and I'm so fucking looking forward to it.
Slightly morphed.
I love Animorphs. I love it so much. It's
nostalgia hard.
Teenage, yeah. So do check in on that. Just basically look at my Twitter, Half-Last Hermit. Why am I saying this? All of the people in chat know who I am.
It'll be on YouTube. They may not.
I'm gonna stop now. This is getting out of hand.
Yeah, and for me, you'll see me on Song of the Deep with Lydia on Monday on EncounterRoleplay, and then the day after, oh god, I'm so nervous, y'all. I'm gonna be taking over Tentacle Tuesdays over on EncounterRoleplay, running Achtung Cthulhu. It's the 2 o'clock Eastern. Mitch is dancing about that, and that makes me feel good. That'll be 2 o'clock, 2 to 5 Eastern on Tuesday, and then every Tuesday thereafter for the next 7 weeks, where, yeah, we're going to be taking a group of exceptional fucking role players. I can't even believe how lucky I got with this. It's insane. A group of absolutely extraordinary role players into the forest of the Ardennes for the final chapter of World War II, complete with Elder Gods. Because World War II wasn't horrific enough, we're adding the Cthulhu mythos to the Nazis. So definitely check that out. I would very much appreciate all of your support because I believe the kind phrase is I am shitting bricks. So...
And of course, tomorrow we're both involved in the EncounterRoleplay Halloween event, which is a triple bill. We are starting with Jonathan Fry GMing Bluebeard's Bride at noon EST, I'm going to do Stille Nacht, which is a murder mystery, supernatural murder mystery story set in the Christmas flood of 1717. And I've played in it before. It is fucking raw, like emotionally raw. I'm so here for it. And that's at 3 p.m. EST. And then Colin is taking over at 6 p.m. with Quietus.
Quietus, an incredibly depressing RPG that literally the book literally contains the line, "The real monster is your untreated depression." So check that out. It is a very small, very intimate game. It'll just be me and 2 players doing this, and the game encourages me to absolutely torment them for the entire. I mean, it's one of the keeper principles of that game is be relentless. I am meant to just hit them and hit them hard and keep hitting them until they die, break, or give up. So, yeah, that's gonna be fun and cheerful. But it'll be if you guys are into all of this horror gaming we've been talking about, there is a full day of horror gaming ahead of you tomorrow on Encounter Roleplay, in which you can see 2 incredible GMs and me do some effective for them horror, and then I'll do whatever I can for mine. It's a great all day showcase of great horror TTRPGs, and you should definitely check it out. Totally worth your time.
On that self-deprecating note, thank you very much for joining us today and enjoying the shenanigans. Mitch, by the way, has been relentless behind the scenes the whole time.
He really has.
He really has. So if you think we've been sort of distracted, you're absolutely correct. But we'll be back eventually once we've recovered from this.
I just threw Mitch back on the stream just to
Yeah, he's wearing flowers
just so you
in
can
his
have
hair.
some idea what we've been dealing with while we're trying to do this
I
outro.
wish I was a punk rock girl with flowers in my hair.
Oh.
I did nothing. Can we jazz hands out?
Yes,
Oh, you
let's.
want a jazz hand out? Yeah, sure. That sounds great. And good night, everybody. Thank you all for stopping by.
Woo!
Oop, I just didn't cut the